The little girl. Do you feel you know your parents better now than when you were much younger? Perhaps you now understand the reasons for some of the actions that used to upset you earlier. This story about a little girl whose feelings for her father changed from fear to understanding will probably find an echo in every home. To the little girl, he was a figure to be feared and avoided. Every morning before going to work, he came into her room and gave her a casual kiss, to which she responded with, "Goodbye, father." And oh, there was a glad sense of relief when she heard the noise of the carriage growing fainter and fainter down the long road. In the evening, when he came home, she stood near the staircase and heard his loud voice in the hall. "Bring my tea into the drawing room. Hasn't the papers come yet? Mother, go and see if my paper's out there. And bring me my slippers." So, in the chapter, it is given a preface, a paragraph before, as before you read. It is just given that our experience, that if parents like certain things they used to do to us, if that is against our will, because we did something wrong and they will be doing something else that upsets us, but it is only to make us realize our own mistakes, and we realize such things only when we grow old, or if we are mature enough to understand the situation later. It depends on each person. And heading to the paragraph 1, to the little girl, he was a figure to be feared and avoided. A figure to be feared and avoided. The meaning is given on the side itself, a person to be feared. So the little girl, in the little girl's point of view, here it is referring to the father, the person who is to be feared. And she used to ignore her father at every moment she ever got. She never used to miss any chance. Every morning before going to work, he came into her room and gave her a casual kiss, to which she responded with, "Goodbye, father." So every morning her father used to come to her room and give her a kiss, as if to show affection, his affection. It is his mode of showing affection, and she is very afraid but still says, "Goodbye, father." And later, and oh, there was a glad sense of relief when she heard the noise of the carriage growing fainter and fainter down the long road. So finally, when he left for the office, she used to become happy, or she used to have a peace of mind. And in the evening, when he came home, she stood near the staircase and heard his loud voice in the hall. "Bring my tea into the drawing room. Hasn't the paper come yet? Mother, go and see if my paper's out there, and bring me my slippers." So in the evening, he finally returned home. The protagonist, or the little girl's father, finally came home when it was the evening time. And he came home. Since he came home, she used to simply stand in the staircase as a habit. And when she used to stand near the staircase, he heard his loud voice, his loud, hoarse, deep voice in the hall, like, "Bring my tea into the drawing room. Hasn't the paper come yet?" So he bring my tea in the drawing room. So where he was sitting, he is ordering to bring his tea. Hasn't the paper come yet? So whether his newspaper hasn't come. And mother, go and see if my paper's out there, and bring me my slippers. So mother, it is actually referring to the little girl's mother, not her grandmother, not the grandmother, but the little girl's mother. It is referring to it as mother. To some people it might be confused. That's why I'm saying, once again, remember, mother if here mother is actually referring to the little girl's mother, not the little girl's grandmother. Go and see if my paper's out there and bring me my slippers. So he is asking the little girl's mother to see if his newspaper is there, if his newspaper has come yet, and to bring his slippers he used to wear at home. Kezia, mother would call to her, if you are a good girl, you can come down and take off father's boots. Slowly, the girl would slip down the stairs more slowly, still across the hall, and push open the drawing room. By that time, he had his spectacles on and looked at her over them in a way that was terrifying to the little girl. Well, Kezia, hurry up and pull off these boots and take them outside. Have you been a good girl today? I don't know, father. You don't know? If you stutter like that, mother will have to take you to the doctor. So here it is giving Kezia is the little girl's name. So her mother called her. So if you are a good girl, you can come down and take off father's boots. She shows her mother is asking her to come downstairs and take her father's boots. So as a way of helping her father. Slowly the girl will slip down the stairs more slowly, still across the hall, and push open the drawing room door. So slowly the girl would slip downstairs more slowly, still across the hall, and push open the drawing room. So if you are a good girl, so her mother is asking, if you are a good girl, you can come downstairs and help your father. So slowly the girl would slip down the stairs. It shows that the girl is afraid, so she would just delay her walking, so she could reach the place lately, since her father is there. More slowly, still across the hall, and push open the drawing room door. Here, drawing room door is actually another name for living room. By that time, he had his spectacles on and looked at her over them in a way that was terrifying to the little girl. So that time when she reached, he would have wore his spectacles. He had his spectacles on and looked at her over them in a way that was terrifying to the little girl. So he used to be a strict father, and when he normally used to look at the girl, in the girl's point of view, she used to be very afraid. Well, Kezia, hurry up and pull off these boots and take them outside. Have you been a good girl today? So he is asking Kezia to hurry up and pull off these boots and take them outside. So have you been a good girl today? So it is referring to as if to ask her if her day was okay, or a usual way of asking, how was your day? And I don't know, father. I don't know, father. She was afraid, so due to nervousness, she said these words repeatedly. And you don't know, if you stutter like that, mother will have to take you to the doctor. So her father is mimicking her daughter and said, if you stutter like that, mother will have to take you to the doctor. And he is saying to stop stuttering like that, or else her mother have to take you to the doctor. Stutter means a repeatance of the words. It is especially due to some nervous feeling or a type of illness. She never stuttered with other people, had quite given it up. but only with father, because then she was trying so hard to say the words properly. What's the matter? Why are you looking so wretched about? Mother, I wish you taught this child not to appear on the brink of suicide. Here, Kezia, carry my tea cup back to the table carefully. He was so big, his hands and his neck, especially his mouth when he yawned. Thinking about him alone was like thinking about a giant. She never stuttered with other people, had quite given it up. So she never used to repeat the words like that, but with other people, but only with father she used to stutter like that. Because then she was trying too hard to say the words properly. But she yet still tried, even though her nervousness, to say the words properly. What's the matter? What are you looking so wretched about? Here, wretched means unhappy. What's the matter? He is asking. What are you looking wretched about? So she was looking unhappy. I wish you taught this child not to appear on the brink of suicide. He is asking the little girl's mother to like why she is brought up like this, as a brink of suicide means about to commit suicide, as if she is about to commit suicide, like she is so unhappy. That's why she looks so unhappy, maybe asking her mother to bring up her in a way that doesn't make her look like a brink of suicide. Here, Kezia, carry my teacup back to the table carefully. Here, Kezia, carry my teacup back to the table carefully. So he was drinking tea and finally finished it, and he is asking her to carry her teacup back to the table. He was so big, his hands and his neck, especially his mouth when he yawned. Thinking about him alone was like thinking about a giant. Since he was so big, he was physically big, his hands and his neck, especially his mouth when he yawned. Thinking about him alone was like thinking about a giant. So it's describing the father's physical appearance and also when he yawned. So thinking about him was like thinking about a giant. So when the little girl used to think about him, it was like if she used to think about some humongous giant. On Sunday afternoons, grandmother sent her down to the drawing room to have a nice talk with father and mother. But the little girl always found mother reading and father stretched out on the sofa, his handkerchief on his face, his feet on one of the best cushions, sleeping soundly and snoring. So on the Sunday afternoons, grandmother sent her down to the drawing room to have a nice talk with father and mother. Here it is actually finally referring to the little girl's grandmother. So send her down to her living room to have a nice talk with the father and mother. But the little girl, so when she was about to have a talk with her mother and father, they were already preoccupied. Mother was busy reading and father was sleeping in the sofa, and described as if he had a handkerchief on the face and his feet was laying in one of the best cushions, sleeping soundly and snoring. So he used to sleep very loudly. She sat on a stool, gravely watching him until he woke and stretched and asked the time, then looked at her. Don't stare so, Kezia. You look like a little brown owl. One day, when she was kept indoors with a cold, her grandmother told her that father's birthday was next week and suggested she should make him a pin cushion for a gift out of beautiful piece of yellow silk. So she sat on a stool, gravely watching him until he woke and stretched and asked the time. then looked at her. So she was sitting on a stool and she was watching him gravely, meaning seriously, until he woke and stretched and asked the time, then looked at her. So she was looking at him seriously, and when he woke up and then had a stretch, then he asked the time after getting up, and then he looked at her. Don't stare so, Kezia, you look like a little brown owl. So her staring at him made him a bit uncomfortable. And he was referring to her as a brown owl. Like, who wouldn't get uncomfortable when a brown owl looks at you? One day, when she was kept indoors with a cold, her grandmother told her that father's birthday was next week and suggested she should make him a pincushion for a gift out of a beautiful piece of yellow silk. So one fine day when she was kept indoors with a cold. So she was having a cold, meaning she was very ill, and by that time her grandmother told that father's birthday was next week. So her father's birthday is coming next week, and her grandmother told that she should prepare a birthday gift and suggested she should make a pin cushion. So here it is given. A pin cushion looks like this. For a gift out of beautiful piece of yellow silk. So pin cushion, it is a cushion used to place pins for safety for a gift out of beautiful piece of yellow silk. It is to the covering should be made out of yellow silk, and laboriously with a double cotton the little girl stitched 3 sides. But what to fill it with? That was the question. The grandmother was out in the garden and she wandered into the mother's bedroom to look for scraps. On the bed table, she discovered a great many sheets of fine paper, gathered them up, tore them into tiny pieces, and stuffed her case, then sewed up the fourth side. That night, there was a huge and cry in the house. Father's great speech for the Port Authority had been lost. Rooms were searched. Servants questioned. Finally, mother came into Kezia's room. Kezia, I suppose you didn't see some papers on a table in our room. Oh yes, she said. I tore them up for my surprise. What? Screamed mother. Come straight down for the dining room this instant. Laboriously means with a effort of difficulty, with a great effort or difficulty. Laboriously means she was very focused in her job. With a double cotton, the little girl stitched 3 sides. So with a double cotton, a type of cloth with cotton, the little girl stitched 3 sides. But what to fill it with? She was confused what to fill it with. That was the question. The grandmother was out in the garden and she wandered into mother's bedroom to look for scraps. So the grandmother, she was outside the garden and she was doing something, and the little girl, she wandered to the mother's bedroom to look for scraps. So she went into her mother's bedroom to look for any type of used papers or any scraps, leftover papers. On the bed table, she discovered a great many sheets of fine paper, gathered them up and tore them into tiny pieces and stuffed her case, then sewed up the fourth side. So in the bed table she discovered a great many sheets of fine paper. Gathered them up, she gathered the pieces. So in the bed table, it is a table near the bed, and she discovered a great many sheets of fine paper, gathered them up, tore them into tiny pieces and stuffed her case, then sewed up the fourth side. So here it is given the picture of a bed table. Now gathered those fine paper she saw in the bed table. She gathered them all, collected them, and finally tore them into tiny pieces. And in the particular case, she stuffed those double coated layer. She she placed those into the case and then quickly sewed up the fourth side. So the three sides were completed, and she collected those into the case and then stitched up the fourth side. And that night there was a hue and cry in the house. So hue and cry means angry protest. Hue and cry. Hue and cry means angry protest. Yes, angry protest. And father's great speech for the Port Authority had been lost. Father's great speech for the Port Authority. So Port Authority. So this story, it is not in India. It is in some other foreign country. And the Port Authority is a section in either United States or Canada. It is a separate assembly, a separate division for government which deals with transport and other port-like structures, port-like things related to the port. And it was a great speech that father had. He had to present it in front of the Port Authority. It had been lost. Rooms were searched, servants questioned. Finally, mother came into Casey's room. So they were all hopeless and they roamed around every corner, every nooks and corner of the room, every nooks and corner of the house. And finally, her mother reached Casey's room to ask if she had any idea of the papers. Casey, I suppose you didn't see some papers on a table in our room. So her mother is asking Casey if she has seen any papers. So she replies, yes, she had definitely saw those and I tore them up for my surprise. So she had something, that's surprise. So she tore them all up. She was being honest. What? Screamed mother. Come straight down for the dining room this instant. So mother was very angry and she asked her to quickly go downstairs to meet the dining room, to meet her father at the dining room. And she was dragged down to where father was pacing to and fro, hands behind his back. And to and fro. Pacing to and fro. So her mother used force to pull the child downstairs. Either she was scolding her or with an angry expression, or she was simply hold the kid's hand and dragged her simply. And father was pacing to and fro, meaning he was walking here and there in like the movement of a pendulum in the steady manner. Hands was behind his back. Well, he said sharply. Her mother explained the whole thing. He stopped and stared at the child. Did you do that? No, she whispered. Mother, go up to her room and fetch down the damn thing. See that the child's put to bed this instant. And the father, when he finally knew what was behind this, he became instantly angry, and he asked the mother to put her to bed and fetch the damn thing, meaning the toad pieces, to bring down those damned pieces. Crying too much to explain, she lay in the shadow room watching the evening light make a sad little pattern on the floor. Then father came into the room with a ruler in his hands. I'm going to beat you for this, he said. Oh, no, she screamed, hiding under the bedclothes. He pulled them aside. Sit up, he ordered, and hold out your hands. You must be taught once and for all not to touch what does not belong to you, but it was for your birthday. Down came the ruler on her little pink arms. So she was crying. She was just crying, and she was laying in her bedroom, shadowed room, and she was watching the evening light and had made little sad pattern on the floor, and it had a sad atmosphere around the home. Then father came into the room with a ruler in his hands. So his father finally came into the room, and with a ruler. He had a scale, what we call a scale, a ruler in his hands. I'm going to beat you for this, he said. A ruler means something we have to measure, we all know. So I'm going to beat you for this, he said. Oh no, she screamed, hiding under the bedclothes. So she was in the bed, and her father finally arrived, and he had a ruler, and he was about to beat the child. He pulled them aside. Sit up, he ordered, and hold out your hands. So he asked her to sit properly and to show her his hands. Show him his hands. You must be taught once and for all not to touch what does not belong to you. So you must be taught once. So you must be taught at least once. You must learn that you don't have to touch things that does not belong to you. Meaning that she has to ask him or her whether to touch this or not, or if you don't have any idea what that thing is, you just have to ignore it. But it was for your birthday. So she used to compromise him by saying that it was for his birthday. Down came the ruler on her little pink arms, meaning he just hit her hands with the ruler. Hours later, when grandmother had wrapped her in a shawl and rocked her in a rocking chair, the child clung to her soft body. So many hours passed, and the grandmother wrapped her in a shawl and rocked her in a rocking chair. So rocking chair, the very own chair that makes such movements, the old chair, the old type of chair which we can move with it easily. And she was sitting here, and the grandmother had a child wrapped in some cloth, and the child clung onto her soft body. What did God make fathers for? She sobbed. She was very angry, and she was like, why do fathers exist? Here's a clean hanky, darling. Blow your nose. Go to sleep. You'll forget all about it in the morning. I tried to explain to father, but he was too upset to listen tonight. So here's a clean hanky. Hanky means a handkerchief. And blow your nose, to clean your nose. Since she was sobbing, she had to clean her nose as a result of her sobbing, and go to sleep, and you will forget all about it in the morning. So when you have a good night's sleep, you will finally forget everything in the morning. I tried to explain to father that it was not your fault. Like she didn't know what was happening, but he didn't care because he was all upset. Like her, his report was missing. What he has to, what he has to like say in front of the crowd is missing. Now he had to prepare another thing, which was hard work, since he was like create something for the something formal authority. But the child never forgot. Next time she saw him, she quickly put both hands behind her back and a red color flew into her cheeks. But the child, she never forget what happened. Next time she saw him, she quickly put both hands behind her back and a red color flew into her cheeks. So next time when she saw her father, she was very scared, and if he would once again hit her with a ruler, and she held her hands behind her back. And she was, due to her nervousness, her cheeks became red. The McDonalds lived next door. They had 5 children. Looking through a gap in the fence, the little girl saw them playing tag in the evening. The father with the baby Mavo on his shoulders, 2 little girls hanging onto his coat pockets, ran around and round the flower beds, shaking with laughter. Once she saw the boys turn the hose on him, and he tried to catch them laughing all the time. So the McDonalds, it's a family name, McDonalds, lived next door and they had 5 children. So in the family there was 5 children, and looking through the gap in the fence, so she occasionally used to get outside the house and look around and all to the neighborhood, and she just observed this little fence and saw a gap, and she was looking through what was happening. The little girl saw them playing tag. Tag is a children's game of catching one another in the evening. The father with the baby, their baby Mavo, on his shoulders, and 2 little girls hanging on his coat pockets ran around the flower beds, shaking with laughter. Once she saw the boys turning the hose on him, he tried to catch them laughing all the time. If the little girl did this to her father, he would have more than beating him, he would do something else that would make the child cry. Like he would punish her if she had turned a hose on his father. But in this family it's not the case. He just laughed and had fun with his family. Then it was she decided there was a different sorts of fathers. So she decided that not only her father, there are different varieties of fathers. So suddenly one day mother became ill, and she and grandmother went to hospital. So one day her mother became sick, and she and grandfather went to hospital. And since her mother was in the hospital, her mother and grandmother had to stay at the hospital. Grandmother had to come to assist her. The little girl was left alone in the house with Alice, the cook. That was all right in the daytime. So when the little girl was left alone, since there was no grandmother in the house, and there was Alice, the cook. The cook Alice was there, and that was all right in daytime. So Alice didn't stay all the time, so it was okay in the daytime. But while Alice was putting her to bed, she grew suddenly afraid. So when Alice was putting her to bed, she was afraid. What will I do if I have a nightmare? She asked. I often have nightmares, and then Granny takes me into her bed. I can't stay in the dark. It all gets whispery. You just go to sleep, child, said Alice, pulling off her socks. And don't you scream and wake your poor pa. What will I do if I have a nightmare, if I have a bad dream? She asked. I often have nightmares, and then Granny takes me into her bed. I can't stay in the dark, it all gets whispery. So she often has these bad dreams, and her granny consoles her, compromises her, and she brings her to her bed. I can't stay in the dark, it all gets whispery, like a whispery motion, like when we wake up in sleep, and when we wake up from our sleep, we will get all whispery, like all the crickets creaking and all sorts of sleep, right? All sorts of noises. Just go to sleep, child, said Alice, pulling off her socks. And don't you scream and wake your poor pa, so don't interrupt your father. Okay? But the same old nightmare came. The butcher with a knife and a rope, who came nearer and nearer, smiling that dreadful smile, while she could not move, could only stand still, crying out, Grandma! Grandma! She woke shivering to see father beside her bed, a candle in his hand. What's the matter? He said. And the butcher, with a dreadful smile, while she could not move, could only stand still, crying out, Grandma, Grandma. She woke shivering to see father beside her bed, a candle in his hand. What's the matter? He said. So the very nightmare she used to be afraid of came again. The butcher with a knife and a rope, who came nearer and nearer, and smiling that dreadful smile while she could not move, could only stand still and crying out. So the butcher, who is a butcher? Butcher, it is a meat seller. So the meat seller, he had a knife and a rope, and he was coming near and near with smiling that dreadful smile, with an ugly and with a very fearful smile, Dreadful means horrible smile. And was crying out, Grandma, Grandma. But she couldn't see her grandma. Instead, she woke to see her father, and he had a candle by his hands. He asked her what happened. Oh, a butcher, a knife. I want Granny. I saw a butcher and a knife, and I want Granny. He blew out the candle, bent down and caught up the child in his arms, carrying her along the passage to the big bedroom. A newspaper was on the bed. He put away the paper, then carefully tucked up the child. He lay down beside her, half asleep still with the butcher's smile all about her, it seemed. She crept close to him, snuggled her head under his arm, held tightly into his shirt. So there was a newspaper in his bed and his bed table, and he put away the paper. So she instantly put the paper away to place the child, and half asleep still with the butcher's smile all over. She was sleepy and she was still awake, and she had the same butcher on her mind, and she for support she had closer to her father. Then the dark did not matter. She lay still. Here, rub your feet against my legs and get them warm, said father. Tired out, he slept before the little girl. So he was all tired after the work and all, and a funny feeling came over her. Poor father, not so big. After all, with no one to look after him, he was harder than grandmother. But it was a nice hardness, and every day he had to work and was too tired to be a Mr. McDonald. She had torn up all his beautiful writing. She stirred suddenly and sighed. What's the matter? Asked her father. Another dream? Oh, said the little girl. My head's on your heart. I can hear it going. What a big heart you have got, father dear. Here, stirred means get out of the bed. Here it means stirred, get out of bed. The word stirred has also other meanings. So stirred, she suddenly got up from the bed and she sighed. She simply sighed. What's the matter? Asked her father. And the dream? So he was curious to know whether she had any dream. Oh, said the little girl. My head's on your heart. I can hear it going. What a big hurt you have got, Father dear. So she was laying near his chest and he can hear the sound of the heart going, and she simply saying, what a big hurt you have got, Father dear. And this story is by Catherine Mansfield. I hope you enjoy this lesson. Thank you. We will be now discussing about the table given in page number 38, just below thinking about the text. Given below are some emotions that Kezia felt. Match the emotions in columns A with the items in column B. So let's begin. So in the first section it explains the given emotions, and the second B part it explains the reasons why. So first, so it just doesn't depend on one single answer. One statement can have multiple correct answers. So first, fear of terror. So if you look at column B, father comes into her room to give her a goodbye kiss. It doesn't seem to be indicating a fear of terror. And the second option, noise of the carriage grows fainter. It rather shows a sense of relief. Father comes home. Yes, it indicates a fear of terror because father had came home. And speaking to father, it also indicates a fear of terror. Yes, it also indicates a fear of terror. And meanwhile, the next is going to bed when alone at home. Yes, it also indicates a fear of terror because she's all alone and grandmother is not near to comfort her, and she has these nightmares, about a butcher about to kill her and all. Father comforts her and falls asleep. No, that's also not fear of terror. Father stretched out on a sofa stool. Yes, it indicates a fear of terror since her father had woke up. And the second option is glad sense of relief. Father comes into her room to give her a goodbye kiss. So it can have two meanings. That first, he is about to leave, and second, it's just a case not to beat her or anything when he came into the room. And noise of the carriage growing fainter. Yes, it's also a glad sense of relief, a funny feeling, perhaps of understanding. Funny feeling, perhaps of understanding. Glad sense of relief. Going to bed when alone at home. No, it doesn't indicate a relief. Speaking to father, no. Father comes home, no. Father comforts her and falls asleep. No. Father stretched out on the sofa snoring. No. Third one, a funny feeling, perhaps of understanding. First option, father comes into her room to give her a goodbye kiss. Not applicable. Noise of the carriage growing fainter. No. Father comes home. No. Speaking to the father. Definitely not. Going to bed when alone at home. No. Father comforts her and falls asleep. Yes, it's when she started to understand him even more, of the human in him. Before he used to see a giant in him, now she sees a human. Father stretched out on the sofa. Next, answer the following questions in one or two sentences. Why was Kezia afraid of her father? So why was our main character Kezia afraid of her own father? The answer is, since Kezia's father was aloof and self-absorbed, it was natural for Kezia to develop a a fear for her father. Since Kezia's father was aloof, it means aloof means not friendly. Aloof means not friendly, and self-absorbed meaning showing care only to his or her needs. It was natural for Kezia to develop a fear for her father. And moving on to the next question. Who were the people in Kezia's family? Who were the people in Kezia's family? Who were the people in Kezia's family? So in the text it is given she has a grandmother, a father and a mother. Very simple question, isn't it? What was Kezia's father's routine? First, before going to his office, her father would go to her room, and as a sign of affection, he would kiss her. And second, after coming back from his house, he would be ordering tea and would be asking for his newspapers and slippers. And in the third option, on Sundays he would be resting on a sofa, because after all these days he would be working, and he has his feet placed on one of the cushions and a handkerchief is placed on his face. Fourth question. In what ways did Kezia's grandmother encourage her to get to know her father better? In this question, it is very significant that whether her grandmother used to encourage her. So the answer is her grandmother did encourage her to get to know her father better. How? She did this by sending her grandchild to have a talk with her parents, but the plan always used to fail because her father was resting, meanwhile her mother was busy reading something, and she always used to make such trivial efforts to make her child or her grandchild to have a better knowledge on her parents, or to grow more affectionate and attached towards her parents. Kezia decides that there are different kinds of fathers. What kind of father was Mr. MacDonald, and how was he different from Kezia's father? Kezia compared her father with Mr. MacDonald, her next door neighbor. He was a loving, gentle and forgiving father. He was always smiling and playing with his children. He treated his children in a friendly manner. He was just the opposite of Kezia's father. Unlike Kezia's father, he never punished his children. He played with them whenever he was present. Kezia's father was very harsh. He used to call her and strict disciplinarian. She tried to make her a birthday gift for her father with papers. Those were very important in her father's point of view. She made her father's problems even worse. She wrecked her father's speech for the Port Authority. He didn't like the fact that she always used to look unhappy around. He even blamed her mother. He didn't like the habit of touching things that didn't belong to her, so she punished her as a warning. He despised her stuttering habit. He even asked her mother to stop making her look pathetic. How does Casey begin to see her father as a human being who needs her sympathy? With her mother and grandmother at the hospital, Cassia is left at home in the care of Alice, the cook. At night, after she is put to bed by the cook, she has a nightmare. She calls for her grandmother, but to her surprise, she finds her father standing near her bed. He takes her in his arms and makes her sleep next to him. Half asleep, she creeps close to him, snuggles her head under his arm, and holds tightly to his shirt. Her father asks her to rub her feet against his legs for warmth. Her father goes off to sleep before her. This makes her understand that he has to work hard every day, and this leaves him too tired to be like Mr. McDonald. She expresses her altered feelings for her father by telling him that he has a big heart.